Hello, BookTube. It's a beautiful summer day here in Boston, just gorgeous, and I started the day off by treating myself in three ways. One is a way that I treat myself to every morning, and that is to take my little dog for a walk, my little Frida Bean. Out in the early morning, the whole neighborhood is deserted. There's no traffic, there's no people, there's no dogs. She likes to put her baton underneath her armpit and inspect the neighborhood because she has let it go overnight. So we encounter something new, and she says, "This is new. I'd better pee on it." We encounter something that is in a different place than it was the last time she saw it. She will look at it, say, "This isn't in the same place that it was the last time I saw it. I'd better pee on it." We didn't encounter anybody, but it didn't matter. We were chatting the whole time, and it was wonderful. And that's the way I treat myself every day. The only exceptions to that rule are when it's pouring rain, when we don't get to walk. But I treated myself in two other ways this morning. First thing, one was to mail out a bunch of packages. I have a shelf out of camera range here that I used for outgoing mail. And I pile stuff on there. I don't go out and run errands every day anymore. So I pile stuff on there, and I wait until it reaches critical mass. I wait until I feel terrible about how long it's been since I've mailed stuff out to people when I promised it to them. And then I mail off some of it. And I decided, since it's such a joy to send presents to people in the mail, I decided that this morning I would indulge myself, I would treat myself by mailing everything. No, don't hold anything back. A little bit awkward to carry to the post office, but I didn't care. It felt great. And the third way I treat myself is very familiar on this channel, which is to go to the Brattle Bookshop, a used bookstore in downtown Boston that I've been going to forever, and that I love. I love to go there. It's a big, bustling used bookstore. It is not, as one tourist family commented today, the country's oldest and biggest used bookstore. That isn't true, but it is one of the oldest. And the stock changes all the time, just constantly. And there's a sale lot next door to the shop that's huge. It's not one cart of markdown books like you would find, for instance, outside the Brookline Booksmith over in Brookline, Massachusetts, or even 10 carts like you would find outside the Strand bookstore in New York City. It's instead a whole lot of books, walls, carts, $1, $3, and $5. It's a place you can really go and inhabit. I tend to do that. Especially when I need a pick-me-up. When I need a treat, I go there because in addition to anything that I'm going to find, I always try to describe this and I always fail. The whole collection of books on those book carts raises a great solitary symphonic conversation in my mind that is timeless because it has taken place over so long, so many decades. All of my history with all of these books, all of my relationships with them, all the ones that I've read, all the ones I haven't read and why I haven't read them, and all the ones I have seen before in all weathers, in all decades, in used bookshops, including the Brattle, including the sale lot of the Brattle. It's not a question of what I'm finding to buy. I found a bunch of stuff to buy. But it isn't a question of that. I feel this even on the rare occasions when I don't find much out in the sale lot. It's an insulary thing. Suddenly I am not alone, and suddenly I am not quite connected to the exact exigencies of the moment, of whatever moment I'm in. It feels fantastic. I'm not doing a good job of describing it, but it feels fantastic, and it worked this morning, as it does every time. In fact, one of the reasons that I tend to like that is because it never fails to work. Even when the thing that I want a pick-me-up from is grief, it still never fails to work. I always have to leave. I mean, I always have to deal with humans, and I always have to come back to the world, the subway and the sidewalks and traffic and whatnot. But for that moment, it's like slipping into a warm, inviting bath. And I did that, and that was also a treat. And I also got a pile of books that I wanted to show you. And we'll see how many of these interest you. I got one mass market paperback and one trade paperback, and all the others are hardcovers. So 100 pounds of books. The paperback that I got is by Robert Lee Hall. It is Benjamin Franklin and a Case of Christmas Murder. It's a little mass-market paperback murder mystery from St. Martin's Press. This would be from the 90s, I believe. I'm pretty sure I sold this in bookstores. In 1990 itself. I think this was the first in a series of murder mysteries starring Benjamin Franklin, in which he's the sleuth. And that would make it, I think, the third series. The third such series in which an author makes Benjamin Franklin an amateur sleuth. I might have read this back in 1990. I wouldn't have read it after that because it wouldn't have had a long stay in my store. So it would have been out of sight, out of mind. But I'm always interested in murder mysteries just in general. But also, I have a sweet tooth for murder mysteries that take actual historical characters as their sleuths. Mainly the sweet tooth is a little bit sadomasochistic because those books are almost never done well. Now, maybe you have an example in mind that is done well, where that is done well. I've almost never seen it done well, but I don't have any memories of this book. So if I read it, it's long gone. So I'll give it another try. Then the other paperback is a rebuy. I've followed this once on this channel already, but I tore it apart. It fell apart. So I got it again. This is An Edge in My Voice by Harlan Ellison. This is a collection of pieces that he did for the LA Weekly. That he had a regular column, and it was tremendously engaging for his readers. He was constantly in dialogue with them. It wasn't just I'm going to make my 1,000 words and print it and that's it, and no one's going to think about it or notice it, and I'm not going to notice it. Instead, I don't know how many of you have read Harlan Ellison, but he's a very, very engaging writer. Whether you like him or don't, whether you agree with him or not, he's very, very engaging. And his readers did engage with him in that old column, which it was, I don't remember if off the top of my head, I don't remember if his column had a name. But he gave unvarnished, muckraking opinions on all kinds of subjects. He invited response from readers, got it, and often made comments out of their responses. It was all very engaging. And this collects a lot of that. Plus it has him backseat driving for a lot of it. There's a new introduction. There are some new notes. There's new material in here as well. This is from the late 1980s, I believe. 1985. And I really like it. This is Harlan Ellison in the register and in the authorial voice that I most like. You might wonder why this is going to fall apart just like the last one did. You might wonder why that would be so. It was because this is made by the Downing Company. And you might say, well, Harlan Ellison, wasn't he a best-selling and famous science fiction author? Why did his book come out here instead of, from Simon & Schuster or Random House, where the trade paperback might be in better shape? Is that the whiff of burnt bridges that I detect on the wind? It would be great if I didn't have to worry about this anymore. It would be great if we put the little bastard in the Library of America. He belongs there. He belongs there. And that would be sewn binding, acid-free pages. That would be just fine. That would be just fine. This could be one whole volume of the Library of America. Sooner or later, that will happen. But this is so great for dipping in and out. Here you'll get Harlan Ellison's opinions on the latest movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Aliens, Superman. You'll get his opinions on all sorts of local and regional and very specific to the time political issues. There was nothing that was safe from him. He was a truly omnivorous reader and writer, which is a rarity. That those kinds of people don't come along very often. He diligently resisted siloing himself. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that. No matter what else, I appreciate that. I'm choosing my words carefully here, but this is terrific. I was glad to find another copy. I basically grab a copy every time I see it because this thing is not well made and will not hold up. It will not hold up to a vigorous read, especially if I go through it highlighting it. Then we have all the hardcovers, an endless string of hardcovers that are grouped more or less in. There are a couple of big groupings here. We'll do one that isn't in a grouping at all, and this was a mistake. I think this was $1, and I shouldn't have got it. It's not in the best of shape, but it's Everything That Rises Must Converge by Flannery O'Connor. And I don't mean just this. This stuff can be removed. That's not hard to do. That's not actually what I mean. What I mean is that it looks like this is coming loose from its binding. It looks like the mesh thread there is the only thing really holding this cover on. I would like this little hardcovers of this of Flannery O'Connor's major works individually. I would like that, but and I think that's why I grabbed this. But I don't know that this is going to be salvageable. I don't know what I'll clean it up and see if there's anything I can do with it. But I'd very much like that. I believe there is a Flannery O'Connor Library of America volume that I just don't have, that I got and then just got rid of, that will have Wise Blood and A Good Man Is Hard to Find and Everything That Rises Must Converge in one volume. I'm pretty sure that exists. Or am I imagining, did I dream it? Well, there's a mass market paperback that has that, and I haven't found that in over a decade. So I grabbed this, but I don't know. It wasn't much money, so I don't need to worry about it. Then we have a couple of, actually a block of biographical stuff. This first one is from the American Statesman series. Some of you who are familiar with used bookstores of a certain vintage will remember this series. You'll have seen it. It was a series that was brought out that gave 1 volume or maybe 2 volume biographies of famous men in American history. And some, it was a whole series, and some of those volumes are better than others, obviously, because they all have different authors. And today I found the one on Charles Francis Adams, written by his son, Charles Francis Adams. So this is exactly the biography that I wanted of this figure. It is a quintessential Steve book. It doesn't get much more Bostonian than this. The other day, or maybe a few weeks ago at the Brattle, there was a copy of Duberman's biography of Charles Francis Adams, which is quite good, although it relies heavily on this and on family papers that this also draws from. And I didn't get that biography. I don't quite know why I didn't get that. Except that when I saw it, that other biography at the time, I thought, well, the one I really want is the American Statesman, the one written by his son. Biography of the father written by the son. Okay, so I thought that when I saw that volume, but that doesn't mean I don't want that volume too. I don't know why I didn't get it. And I looked today and I didn't see it. So somebody maybe grabbed that other one. But I have this one. I don't have many of the American Statesman series. I have one for Samuel Adams. I have one for, I think I have one by and one about Theodore Roosevelt. I'm not sure how many of them I have, but Charles Francis Adams, absolutely, for the vintage Boston shelf, which is actually almost 2 shelves now. Then the other biographical thing was this thing. I have never seen this in a used bookstore, so I had to grab it. This is A.L. Rous, who some of you, if you read history, will know as a historian of the Elizabethan era and a biographer and a writer on Shakespeare. But he wrote a book about his lifelong boyhood friend, W.H. Auden. And here it is. I never thought I would see this. I've never seen it in a used bookstore. Probably it's common in the UK, but I haven't seen it at the Brattle or anywhere else here. And as a result, I haven't read it. This will be new ground for me. Relatively recently, I engaged in a year-long project to reclaim W.H. Auden for myself as a reader, to like his poetry, or at least to grapple with it. I grappled with it extensively and did come to like it, and that opened the door for all sorts of biographical stuff. I just recently reread and reviewed Nicholas Jenkins' book, The Island, which is about Auden in large part. I love Mendelssohn's 2 books, Early Auden and Late Auden. And I like a lot of Auden's own nonfiction. So this is perfect. I can't wait. I will read it tonight. I'll add it to tonight's, since it's so small, I'll add it to tonight's pile. And then the last biographical thing is a rebuy. I've also hauled this on this channel, but I wanted a sturdier edition than I got. And I found a nice, sturdy hardcover that I will need to spruce up a bit. This is Eileen Simpson, and this is her famous book, Poets in Their Youth. About her husband, John Berryman, about Robert Lowell and Randall Jarrell. About a whole generation of poets in New York and elsewhere, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Do you want to go over there, baby? Go on. Go on. There you go. I think when I hauled this last on this channel, I got a trade paperback. I don't remember what. I know that I broke its spine, whatever it was, because it's long gone. This is in a little bit rough shape, but a nice plastic cover over this will smooth that out. And then I can just transfer notes into this. It's tremendously good, tremendously lively reading. So that's a little biographical vein, and then we can do a rather large vein of military history. Unfortunately, I was purely indulging myself this morning, so I got stuff that I know I'm going to love. I got Fred Cook, whose name will not be known now. He was once upon a time deeply involved in the politics and the journalism of his day, but he wrote a lot. He wrote a lot of books, but he wrote a terrific volume on the pivotal Battle of Saratoga in the American Revolution, Dawn over Saratoga. Not a long thing, but tremendously. I've only read this out of the library. I've never seen it in a used bookstore. It's tremendously readable. Can't wait to go at this again. This is the defeat of Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne. This is John Burgoyne, General Burgoyne, surrendering his army at exactly a time when that was crucial. 1777. When the revolution looked like it was going to fail, when militarily it looked like it was going to fail because Washington could not win. Here, you are mercifully free of Washington. Here you have General Horatio Gates, you have General Benedict Arnold, and you have Daniel Morgan, who is an unsung hero of the American Revolution, especially in the South. And this is going to, not only do I want to have this book, I mean, I want to reread it. I definitely want it as an American Revolution book that I keep. But also, it's going to dovetail perfectly with an upcoming book. There's an upcoming book on the American Revolution in the South that I imagine will have as its set piece Saratoga. I haven't seen that book yet, but we will see. I was very happy to find this thing. Then we have World War II. I found a copy of James Holland's book, The Rise of Germany. This is Volume 1 of the War in the West, 1939-1941. So this is when Germany couldn't seem to lose. I had both of these volumes. There's another volume after this that's blue, and this one's red. There's another volume after this. I had both these volumes as advance copies from the publisher. In fact, I think this one I got also as Unbound Galleys, pages. Then I got an advance copy. Then I got a finished copy. And I think in both cases I also got the trade paperback. And yet don't have them. Yet I don't have them. So I saw this one. I looked around thinking, well, if somebody unloaded this in and it went out onto the bargain lot, then maybe the second volume is around too, and I didn't see it. But I remember enjoying this. If I remember, I will leave a link to my review. It'd be a little bit depressing, but it's the only World War II book that I got. Then I got a little block of American Civil War books. Including this one, which, again, I've only ever seen. I saw it in bookstores, but I've only ever seen it secondhand at a library. So now, to finally find a copy and actually have it where I can write it up or I can annotate it and whatnot, this is Fletcher Pratt, who will be more famous, I think, to more people on BookTube for his fantasy novels, especially The Well of the Unicorn, than for this book, Ordeal by Fire, his one-volume history of the American Civil War. That's more impressions of the American Civil War than a straightforward history. Did really well when it came out. When was this published? Well, this version I think probably came out in the late 1940s, 1950. The book is older than that, but I barely remember this. It's a lot like a couple of the other things in this haul. I barely remember it. It's going to be a joy to rediscover it now in the unbelievable year of 2024. Never thought I would find it at a bookstore. Now, this other one I have seen at bookstores many times. I have also had it. I got a copy from the publisher. Got rid of it over the years, one way or another, but it's an American Civil War book, and it was one that I really liked, and I am I'm moving into a Civil War phase, I think, just based on how many books I've been getting, how much I've been enjoying them. This is by Thomas Buell, and it is The Warrior Generals, Combat Leadership in the American Civil War. So from the beginning of war to the end, but mainly dealing with battlefield decisions rather than even organizational decisions in the War Department, and certainly not political decisions. This is really good. It's really quite good. When I read this the first time, this was in the early aughts? No, 1997. When I read this the first time, I was in a deep, deep Civil War phase. I don't know how deep. If I'm moving into one now, I don't know how deep it will be. But I was in a deep Civil War phase at the time, and was therefore judging very harshly almost all the new books that came out, because almost all of them failed to live up to the great books that had preceded them. And this one was one of the rare examples where I thought it did live up. So I'll be happy to reread it. I'll probably pick and peck. I'll probably go to Antietam first, for this. And now, unlike in the late 90s, now I have the internet at my disposal. Because, of course, the number one question that I want to know about this book isn't what are my second impressions going to be. Is Thomas Buell related to General Don Carlos Buell? Are they related? What are the chances that they're not? What are the chances that they're not? Oh, actually, this is a hardcover. So it might tell me, right? Thomas Buell is a retired naval officer and former warship commander. Graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy and the Naval Postgraduate School. He's taught military history at the Naval War College and at U.S. Military Academy. He's the author of Master of Sea Power, which I really liked, and The Quiet Warrior, which was at the Brattle today. I just didn't get it. He is currently writer-in-residence at the University of North Carolina. Okay, well, extremely tight-lipped. Anyone who's an aficionado of the American Civil War is going to see that last name and immediately think, okay, Don Carlos Buell, are you anything to him? And now I want to know that, but I'll be able to find out. Reddit will know. But I have this to go on the now growing Civil War shelf. And the last book is also the American Civil War, and it also is something that I've never read, so this is going to be a treat. This is by Chris Fonvielle, and it's called The Wilmington Campaign. And it's about 1865. It's about the very end of the war. The very last bits of fighting done by the South in any cohesive way. And the thing that impresses me about this book is that it is unbelievably thorough. It has fold-out maps, which, when did this come out? Let's take a look. This came out in 1997. Surely fold-out maps did not live long after that. Could this be the last American published book that had fold-out maps? I don't know. I think it's entirely possible that it could. It's full of illustrations, full of photos, and battle maps. And it goes into enormous detail about a whole bunch of battles that don't usually make it into broad-scale Civil War histories because they're small, the action was already over, they were post-Gettysburg. And they still involve lots of casualties, lots of valor, lots of interesting maneuvering. It's going to be a joy to read. I may do this weekend. So there was a blast of Civil War books. And then we can finish up with these two oddities here. One is Herbert Bloch. Herblock was his name. He was a famous cartoonist. Almost a century ago, 80 years ago, he was a famous cartoonist. Won a whole bunch of Pulitzer Prizes for his cartoons. And he was just a fixture in the background. He was just you opened up some magazine and they were reprinting a Herblock cartoon. I didn't really think much of him at the time, one way or another. He didn't irritate me. I thought his cartoons were intelligent. But I didn't really think much of him until he got on my radar by being the champion gadfly of Watergate. He was amazing for Watergate. The only time that I'd noticed him before that was that he seemed to have a cartoonist obsession with my guy, John Foster Dulles, and would often do cartoons about him. And I found Special for Today, which is not a collection of his cartoons. Even though it is full of his cartoons, it's not a collection of his cartoons only. Because it has a ton of prose in it. His own prose. Just a ton of prose of him talking about what he was doing, where he was doing it, what the politics of the day were like, who he knew and didn't know. This, in fact, will be the first time that I'll find out whether or not he actually knew John Foster Dulles, or whether or not he ever got any letters from Dulles about any of his cartoons. That's amazing. I don't think I've ever read any prose by this guy. So this is exactly the kind of Steve book that I love, that I would otherwise just slowly but surely march its way all the way back to the back of the sale lot and then to the dumpster. I saved it, and I'm going to love it. So I'm very glad that I found it. And then the last thing here is a bit of a trip down memory lane. This is A Treasury of Vermont Life. And what that title is meant literally, because this is a treasury of the magazine that was called Vermont Life, which had a whole bunch of feature articles about the Vermont nature in all seasons, living in Vermont, the hunting, the fishing, the government sometimes, but very rarely. This is the 10-year anniversary of Vermont Life. But so this is really old. This volume came out in 1956 because Vermont Life started in 1946. And Vermont Life just kept going as a magazine. It kept going and going and going until Frida and I got to Vermont. 2018, I think, is when this magazine folded. And that's the memory lane bit, is that Frida and I have, thanks to Mark Richardson and his family, we've driven over all kinds of Vermont. It's been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do that. And this will have, see, here you've got quarries, hiking, fishing, covered bridges, all the signature Vermont things. But this will have both photographs and also drawings. It'll be wonderful. I'm sure this will be wonderful to look through. So there you go. A Treasury of Vermont Life. No idea if they made another one. I think they did. I think they made one at 50 years. That I might also have. I'll have to check and see. But this is going to be a joy to go through. I try to heavily ration these oversized books, because they are killer for space, but they're also not digitized, and they never will be. So I grab the ones that I don't think I can live without. I try always when I'm at the Brattle, especially in the sale lot. When I'm done at the sale lot, I try to take a mental step back and think, okay, think about all the things that you saw here that you don't currently have in your hand. Are any of those going to prey on your mind when you leave? Everything's cheap here, so don't leave anything behind just because. If you're at all interested in it, grab it. And this is the kind of thing that would have preyed on my mind if I hadn't done it. So I'm glad that I did. So that was my trip to the Brattle. One of 3 treats this morning. I have to confess, I know it means I've got a screw loose, but sending a great whomping stack of packages out to people actually felt just as good or better as buying books for myself. Maybe better. I had just an unbelievable spring in my step when I left the post office. My bag was empty. I was light as a feather. Wasn't carrying a tote bag anymore. And a whole bunch of people are going to get presents in the mail. Probably early next week, considering the delay for the holiday. A whole bunch of people are going to get presents in the mail, and it's nice getting presents in the mail. So anyway, let's do a Steve Pyramid here. This is A Treasure of Vermont Life. Probably going to go through this fairly soon. Then Herlock, Special for Today, not just a collection of his artwork. There were collections of his artwork there. But this is more than that. This is him reflecting on it. Then the American Civil War. We have the Wilmington Campaign, Warrior Generals, and Ordeal by Fire. 3 Civil War books that I hope all 3 of them will be keepers. The Wilmington Campaign could be boringly written. That would be a shame if that were true, but it'll still be useful to read through for the ordnance and whatnot. Then we have The Rise of Germany by Holland. We have Dawn over Saratoga by Fred Cook, who had a lot of other things on his mind. It's wonderful that he could toss off a history book now and then. We have Poets in Their Youth. I will clean and reinforce that so that it It looks really good and take a beating. We have The Poet Auden by A.L. Rous. How wonderful. How wonderful. This and the Vermont Life book, I think, are the ones that are going on the pile for tonight. We have Charles Francis Adams by Charles Francis Adams. His biography of his father. His father was the son and grandson of American presidents, and played a pivotal role. He is the unsung hero. Actually, that book could work in the American Civil War block of this book haul, because he played a pivotal role in making sure that the good guys won the Civil War, by making sure that England did not come into the war on the side of the South, which would have been disastrous. I would argue for everyone involved, but certainly for the Union. But anyway, then we have Flannery O'Connor. I don't know about this one. We'll see. I'm holding it emotionally at arm's length because I don't want to get too close. Then An Edge in My Voice by Harlan Ellison. The edge in your voice is throat cancer, but I get the point. I know what you mean. And this is going to be hours of wonderful reading. And then this is going to give up the ghost. And finally, a mass market paperback of Benjamin Franklin and the Case of Christmas Murder. Who knows who the guest stars in here will be? I'm hoping that John Adams or Thomas Jefferson or whoever make appearances in here. That's always wonderful. But anyway, there's a huge stack of books for our Brattle book haul for what's coming up on a long weekend. I think, judging by not the siren, the one and only siren that I've heard today, not judging by the siren, but judging by traffic or by passersby, I'm willing to think that most of Boston has already started its long weekend. Tomorrow is Thursday. That is the 4th of July. I don't believe that anyone will go to work on Friday. I believe people will just take 4 days off. I'm pretty sure that anyone who can do that, I think, will. And the Brattle will not be open on Independence Day. But it was open today, and I made use of it. I had a blast. I got a pile of books that I'm going to glom over and read into and inventory and maybe read the Auden book and the Vermont Life book. It's going to be wonderful. So I thought I'd take you along. I'm going to wrap this up for now. I will not be going back to the Brattle until next week. Next week sometime. It looks to me like the next few days are going to be hot, so I wouldn't be doing anything anyway. I have a gigantic raft of things I want to do tomorrow that involve me going outside, wearing pants, leaving the bean. I don't know how many of them I'll do, if I do any of them. I may decide at the last minute to just stay in and read all day. But if I don't see you tomorrow, I will be back on the weekend. So, or on Friday, I guess I should say, because Friday is not the weekend. Thursday, the 4th of July, I may not make videos, but the rest of the time, yes. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.